Dub AI and Global Practices, Creating and Nurturing the AI Ecosystem.
Okay, everybody, welcome to today's panel. We are here to talk about the Dubai AI and Global Practices, Creating and Nurturing the AI Ecosystem. With me, I have Saqr Ereiqat, who is the Secretary General of the Dubai Digital Assets Association, and Micallef, who is the AI Supervision main man at the Malta Digital AI Authorities. And I would like to start out with asking, in the world of AI, artificial intelligence, where are the boundaries between sensible regulation on the one side and the risk of Terminator Skynet on the other side? If I may kick the ball over to you, Neil, first, since the EU has already come up with the first AI regulation in the world, what is your take on where the sensible boundaries for this new industry lies?
So the way I see it is, it's always a game of catch-up when it comes to AI and innovation and regulation, and it's most innovative tech that's like this. But AI, as most of you know, it's a lot faster. ChatGPT came out in November 2022, and it's been 2 years. And since then, the advancements have been crazy. We've had DeepSeek in early January that's completely flustered the US and even given the EU something to think about. So we welcome these kind of disruptions in reality as they help the innovative landscape evolve. Now, defining the boundary is an interesting one because you don't want to over-regulate to the point that you choke out innovation, but at the same time, you don't want to keep things so rampant that you end up with Skynet, as you said, because you don't want to have systems like in employment or education, for example, where you select people based on race, for example, and you can have a perfectly viable person for a job or for education, and they don't get selected by an AI system. So I think there are some key concepts of the EU's approach, the risk-based classification of the high-risk and prohibited systems, which make a lot of sense. And something to consider as well is that there was a study where it showed that around 90-95% of all AI systems fall in the scope of the EU regulation where no obligations apply. So at least in terms of how wide it goes, there's quite a lot of AI systems which won't have a lot more to do from the operator side. So I think it's important to have a regulatory framework in place. It could be construed as being a bit too much for micro-organizations, for example, but that's where work comes to national organizations like us, where we have to make sure that from a national side at least, we work proportionally, we help startups and SMEs get going slowly, we give them stuff to equip them to be able to innovate with funding, with mentorship, these kinds of skills, and we balance out the innovation and regulation in that way. But yes, we do need regulatory frameworks in place, for sure.
So let's take that as an example of a jurisdiction that's already done it. Over to you, Saqr. The question becomes, the United Arab Emirates, especially Dubai, has been innovative in so many areas. On something like AI, what is the general plan and format for handling and encouraging this in the future, encouraging entrepreneurs to set up AI-related businesses here?
First and foremost, it's an absolute pleasure and an honor to see a fully packed house for AIBC, to see all of you guys, and maybe by a show of hands, how many of you are non-Dubai residents? Right, and that's a lot of you. So really a big round of applause to you and the AIBC team, first of all. I get particularly excited for this because the first time I tried to tell people about these kind of technologies, I couldn't get 5 people in a room. So this is very personal to me, and thank you so much for showing up in Scores and making the UAE what it is today, really a destination for emerging technologies as a whole, rather than just AI or blockchain or IoT. Because what we live under here in the UAE is that innovative way of government and thinking of government. And, in many ways, Malta is doing the same thing. So we had a minister of AI as early as, I think, if I'm not mistaken, 2017, 2018, don't beat me to the number. And we've put this at the core, and obviously, as when I say we, I mean me as a Dubai resident, right? while maybe Europe or other jurisdictions have come up with AI regulations, I'm very, very proud to say the UAE as a government came out with ethical considerations for AI, a guidance paper that is accessible to each and every one of you, right? And already, I think, 2 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. Because I think the biggest thing that unfortunately no one talks about is the ethical regulations that have a real implication on our life right now. Because, you know, if you say, no, I'm not using ChatGPT, so I'm not using AI. No, your inbox is AI, your YouTube is AI. Hello, DMCC. Thank you very much for joining us today. So your inbox is AI, your YouTube is AI, your Netflix is AI, and the job you've applied to, you've been filtered down by AI, right? So I think, unfortunately, if we think about it, we as humanity, we failed when it comes to protecting our most vulnerable when it comes to technology. And of course, it's a fine line between one or the other. You know, do you stifle innovation? Do you over-regulate? But unfortunately, if we look at social media, for example, you know, let's talk about a technology that's already there and gone for all intents and purposes. Why is it okay that children are killing themselves because of social media? Why is that okay? Why have we not protected these most vulnerable people in our society and said, hey, this technology can't be used in this way? And this is another thing that's very close to me. I'm a father of 3. I'm already considering how is social media going to impact their lives. So ethical considerations first, second, and third, really.
So taking that as a tangible example, AI, artificial intelligence, is potentially an autonomous element, yet it's applied by humans. Back to the example of children. So a company applies AI. The AI causes that the children do something terrible, potentially to themselves. Who's then held responsible afterwards? Is that the company? How do you see that from a regulatory point of view? The actions taken by AI deployed by a company?
Well, first and foremost, and you know, my line of sight goes to one of the chief AI officers in Dubai, Dr. Marwan. We've actually built governance in place, right? We have a government employee that's called a chief AI officer, right? This concept of us allowing AI to work in a black box needs to stop, and it needs to stop immediately. Unfortunately, it won't. I'm used to preaching about things that no one follows. I was preaching blockchain in 2015, took us 10 years, and we're still not there. Now, with that, we've all accepted, every one of us, we've accepted that AI exists in a black box, and you can't trace where the decision came from. Why? If my tire bursts, there's a very clear example of who's to blame. If I have an accident, there's a very clear example on who to blame. The only thing not allowing us to do this in AI is the fact that we accept it as a black box. And here I believe blockchain to the rescue. Because how do you keep AI honest? You record every decision on a blockchain, on a decentralized ledger.
Neil, how do you see that working out as an actual practice of AI from an operational point of view?
So I'll wear the other shoe for a moment, since I also have a background as an AI developer myself. So I like to switch shoes sometimes in the middle of a discussion, it helps. So in this case, I agree with you.
Can you just take a step back and just explain how you create AI? Because a lot of people don't understand that AI is built on something called an LLM, which is a large language model. So that's basically where you build the whole system in terms of what it's supposed to do. Can you just explain that give that 1 minute?
So that's basically a 6-month course in a minute, but I'll do my best. But in any case, so we used to build narrow AI before. So systems I used to build, for example, we'd have a medical AI, for example. You'd give it an MRI or a CT scan. Listen, here's the brain tumor, here's the segmentation for it, you're done. And the only people interacting with the AI at the time was myself as the developer and the user. Nowadays, we're in this kind of web industry 4.0, 5.0 thing where people are interacting with AI all the time. It's two-way. So the way LLMs work, it's opened up such a Pandora's box where it can give you a hallucination, for example. It takes your question. It looks into how it's learned to reason, how it's learned to answer. Sometimes it uses RAG. It looks on the internet. Modern techniques are even more advanced than that as well. They can even use other AIs, multi-agent solutions. And it will build the sentence word by word as it goes in the response in a very, very small nutshell. But the problem is, if it doesn't know how to answer, it's not like the narrow AI, right? Where it will give you a confidence score and it will say, listen, I'm 60% accurate. Most modern LLMs will hallucinate if they don't know what they're doing.
What does hallucinate mean in that sense for the audience?
Yes. So when an LLM hallucinates, it gives you an answer which isn't correct, but it still gives you it as the definite answer, right? So you can set, for example, an easy one, tell an LLM, give me the result for that football match by that team in the Premier League in 2011. Most likely it will give you a bad reply because it's not in its data. Online it might not get a good reply. This was the thing with ChatGPT a few months ago. I tested it myself. So going back to the black box thing though, there are techniques, the blockchain is good, that's one. There's explainable AI as well, and we tend to put that a bit on the side too much, I think. So explainable AI is nice. In my area, vision, you can put certain techniques which tell you, listen, I'm learning to identify faces by looking at the cheeks, looking at the eyes, at the forehead. So it tells you what landmarks it's using, both to train itself and to produce the answer. And I believe these kinds of techniques require a lot more investment and a lot more research acumen and knowledge. So we can try to apply a white box approach to LLMs as well. Now, from discussions we have at EU level as well and other fora from MDIA, I know there's a lot of efforts going on even in the EU and the US about this. So they're working on making it more of a white box approach, but it's tough. I mean, the technology is evolving every single day, so AI safety institutes, which are growing and thankfully becoming quite an industry, still have their work cut out for them. I think it's a tough one.
So if we take this as an example of the EU has done this, yes, the UAE is working on this. So let's say I'm an evil person, I'm a villain. So you have rules in place already. You're about to have rules in place. So I keep on moving, jurisdiction hopping, to the next place where I feel that there is no regulation in place, whereby I can operate freely. How do you see that from a security implementation point of view? Is that by blocking IP addresses, or is it like a kind of a Interpol of the internet where jurisdictions will say that place, let's say North Korea, is a place where all these toxic AIs are produced that help people how to build, I'm going to say something, bombs, or what do I know? How do you see that working?
I think the beauty of technology, and any technologists in the audience will agree, there's no such thing as a really uncontrollable technology, right? I'm a blockchain guy, and I want to believe in an open, autonomous world, but the matter of the fact is if it's on tech, it's traceable, it's trackable, it's manageable, a government can put a wrapper around it, right? Will that mean that regulatory arbitrage will not happen, where someone will jump from this area to that area to that area to that area? Of course it's going to happen. And we've seen that happen. You know, that's even predating anything around crypto or anything. Online casinos, right? Online casinos until today, you know, operate in a particular jurisdiction, close down that jurisdiction, open up another one, open up another one. Will you find a solution for that? I don't think so. But the way you can control it as a government, if you're thinking about, you know, I met regulators walking in, so if you're a regulator, the way to control it is just the way that you control your internet traffic. Now then, again, the question will come in and say, but, you know, should we be doing this? I'm a big advocate of yes, right? I'm willing to give up a bit of my freedom to live in a safer world, right? I'm willing, I mean, it's completely okay for me. I found a website the other day that was blocked by the local telecommunication provider, and it shouldn't have been blocked. And getting it unblocked was a very streamlined, easy process. But I am more for blocking something until you figuring out it being okay than keeping it open and out there in the public and then figuring it out.
But that has been the claim of the EU, where they said, look, we will put down very stringent guidelines, that's my understanding, on AI until we understand how does this really work. So how is it working inside the EU framework that you are able to monitor and decide which parts are eventually to be allowed? Because you were mentioned that 95% don't fall within the regulatory scope. Can you give us a bit of an insight on that?
Yes, sure. So from Malta's side, we're quite lucky because we had the national AI strategy as early as 2019. So we're a very forward-looking country, luckily. And last year, I joined MDIA, opening the market surveillance team on AI. So we have a dedicated function, first office in the EU, as far as I know, dedicated to market surveillance. So we're on top of that. Now, in terms of the regulation itself, so very good questions, and I liked your answer from earlier as well. Yes, so a lot of systems do not have that kind of high risk or prohibited nature to them. I'll give an example. A prohibited system would be a mass surveillance system which provides social scoring, for example. So you're walking about your day in the street, you don't help someone, for example, and the government says, okay, let's deduct 100 points from that person. He won't have access to banking services now. I mean, that's obviously...
Turn off the water, yeah.
Yeah, turn off the water, right? So that's obviously unethical, and for that reason, it's a prohibited system. I mean, you could have it not even at a government scale, right? It could be a bank. Let's say a bank says, let me scrape the social media profiles of persons, and if I find posts I don't like, I reduce their credit score, right? I'd increase their risk, for example. That's not fair, right? It's also unethical, so it's also prohibited. High risk is something which you can build, you can develop, but you'll need to undergo some form of conformity assessment. It's like the CE marking for medical products, that kind of thing. And I think it's necessary, because like I said, you shouldn't bar people's access to education, to employment, to healthcare, financial services. Oh, what's going on over there?
They're clearly having much more fun than us, you know. So I feel a little bit jealous. You know, maybe we should all go there and start jumping up and down.
My question is, when is AI going to be fun? You know?
Yeah.
When is AI regulation going to be fun? Never, right? But again, we need to swallow that pill. And sorry, Neil, I don't want to rain on your parade, but I'm super passionate about this, because this isn't about the world we just live in. This is about the world we pass on to our children and our children's children. And we have to be honest with ourselves. It needs to start there. We've not done it right for any technology. It's not as if we can go to this technology and say, oh my God, this is great. Let's replicate that for AI. And AI in itself is a whole different kind of beast, right? There's a big conversation about when artificial general intelligence, and God knows, but the matter of the fact is it's already impacting our life in a way that jobs are disappearing and appearing, in a way that skills are appearing and disappearing, in a way that governance models are appearing and disappearing, right? So the earlier we jump up and down, like these guys over there, because they're excited about something else, and say, no more of this. And it needs to be consumer driven. I'm sorry, with respect to Malta, because I'll take Malta more on our side than the EU side. The EU, how will they be able to govern this if a bill that you want to get through the EU Parliament will take, in the happy path, 2 years? You know what happens in 2 years in AI? I don't know, right? But by the time that you're regulating something, or that regulation actually hits, it's too late already. And that's why I appreciate countries like the UAE, where a ruler can come out and say, now we're doing this. This is going to get done, and that's it. And this is, in many ways, I think, what will ensure that we, on a regulatory framework, win this regulatory race.
But what's your understanding then of how the regulatory framework in the UAE in general will look? Is it going to be very accommodating? Is it going to be more limiting? What's your expectation in terms of also what kind of AI business does the UAE wish to attract with that framework?
That's a really good question. And if we think about this, I'd like to start with the fact I don't think you'll find any more royals in one country or members of government in one country that are as pro-technology and AI as you will in the UAE. To make this factual, His Highness, the Crown Prince of Dubai, Sheikh Hamdan, recently published something called the Dubai AI Center. Right? The guys from DMCC, and you know, they're to be credited with a lot of the amazing blockchain efforts that we're seeing over here, have opened an AI center. Governments are standing behind this actively, right? And no, I'm not sponsored by the DMCC, right? But it's amazing to see that governments are taking the front seat in all of this. They're not waiting for industry to drive this. No, they're actually bringing industry in. Rulers of this country are actively driving this equation. The first guidance paper to be issued by the UAE government wasn't about A, B, or C. It was about these ethical considerations for AI and how ethical considerations will impact the entire AI journey. Thank you very much. Thank you. No, but on all seriousness, I believe that the UAE is standing at this unique space, in this unique space, where one, they have the leadership buying into it, two, they have government entities driving it, three, they have the right thought leadership, and that's every single one of us supporting them. So I'm very, very hopeful.
So let's just take that. Neil, you come from the technology side. What do you think? We had ChatGPT causing a lot of excitement. We had things like Grok and whatever comes along there. And recently we had DeepSeek. Where do you suspect is going to be the next frontier in AI for the audience to consider in the very near future?
I think the coolest thing I saw about a week ago when then you left the presentation was, so you know Anthropic's Claude, right? And there's companies also in the EU working on this kind of stuff, Mistral, I believe. But Claude actually published a video where they told their LLM, which is Claude, to run another instance of Claude to execute a program on a computer. So it built the code, it ran the program, and it executed the full script and even accessed the website to use it. Hosted a server, it did everything. So just like a full stack developer, kind of. And that's unprecedented so far, right? We've seen AI being used to generate output and reuse that. But now we're at a point where agents can speak to themselves, generate instances of themselves, and carry out tasks. And that's now. That's happening already. So I foresee that in the next year or so, I won't talk about AGI. That's a huge Pandora's box, and we don't have another hour here, but I think we have very exciting things coming up this year.
So let's hope that Saqr and Neil, they deliver on the regulatory side. Otherwise, get ready to use a weapon and enjoy Skynet in your own Arnold Schwarzenegger Terminator movie. Unfortunately, we're out of time. Thank you for listening in and being here today.
Thank you, everyone.
And let's just have a little photo session and close it up.
Hey, I want to invite you to take a selfie with us, if you don't mind. So if you'd like to be on the selfie, I'd love to get everyone on a selfie from the stage, rather than you watching us take a picture.
Thank
if
you.
you want to stand up.